remember life before the Holocaust, and remember the Holocaust equally well and clearly. And I hope to improve the quality of life by informing young people so that my grandchildren, of whom I have 4 wonderful youngsters, can have a better world than the world that I do. I am doing what I'm doing, you might say, for selfish reasons. I have learned that if one suffers and we ignore it, the rest of us suffer too. And I do the best I can to teach youngsters what I have learned. And I hope they'll take the distance from where we come.
When did you go into hiding? And how did you survive?
We went into hiding when those who vanquished us informed us that we must go to the train at a certain time on a certain date to be taken to the East. We didn't have very much information about the East. We didn't have very much information about anything. When I think of the world I live in now and the world I come from, I can't believe that it's me who has made such a vast trip. But the truth is that we live in sheer ignorance. Now I'm confused by all the information I get. Then I was confused because I was a child, and the adults around me didn't know much more than I. But when that came out, that order that we must go to the railroad station to go east, and the assurances from the propaganda machine were that in the East everything would be better. Better jobs, better homes, better schools, better health care, everything would be better. All the things we now work hard for, they were going to give us because they loved us so much. My father realized that this was what he used to call the big lie. My father had the good fortune of being befriended by a good German. You know, every community has its good people. The man my father was befriended by was a unit school teacher before he was taken into the German army. And he was stationed in our house during the arrest period before when they went to the Russian front. And he loved playing chess with my father. And their simple conversations led to more and more wisdom on the part of my father. My father was, after all, a provincial Jew. Mr. Arnold was a German of high rank from the city of Munich, where Hitler had risen to power. And therefore he understood a great deal more than my father possibly could. But Mr. Arnold made it his responsibility to mentor my father and inform him. And as a result of those evening conversations, which lasted long into the night, my father was able to recognize the big lie when it was upon us. And my father informed every Jewish member of our community by word of mouth. We had no telephones. We had no means of communicating information. But my father informed every member of our community so that when the time came, the only person who showed up at the railroad station was my grandfather. My father's father refused to accept that the German people who had after all risen to such heights would do anything to hurt innocent people. My grandfather said, that's not how it works. Good people don't do evil things. And something is wrong with you, my son. And my grandfather went to the railroad station, and of course, we never saw him again. But the rest of our community, all of us, made an effort to get out of that net which would take us to the east. And the only thing we could do was go into the fields and hide in the fields. And I remember those fields very, very clearly. We would approach at night. Everything we did from now on was done at night. We would approach the haystacks that were built on the harvested fields, and we would dig a hole on the bottom and creep inside. The food supply was fruit that we picked as we walked, and we would stay inside that heap until the next night. In other words, the daylight hours, the hours when the farmers were working the fields, we were buried in haystacks. And then when the farmers took off and went home because the night had come, we would get out of there and move to another field, constantly on the move. We never stayed more than one night in any haystack for fear that we would be noticed and betrayed, and that would be the end of it. Now, two families were involved in this. My mother and father at the time had 4 daughters, and I was the oldest. I was 8 years old. And my aunt and uncle had 3 children, the same ages as my younger siblings. And the decision was made that we would, whatever we did, we would do together, because chances are we're not going to make it anyway. So we might as well have each other to warm, because it's less lonely that way. And we did that. My father sent my Uncle Naphtali away. My uncle insisted that he should come with us because we needed his strong arms to help with the children. And my father said, absolutely no. You must go on your own. You're young, you're strong, you're bright. You must survive so that one day you will tell the world what is done to people for no other reason except that they're weak and have no means of defending themselves. My Uncle Naphtali had to obey his older brother and left us, but he was found. And their daily effort to gather the missing Jews, they rode around on their on their motorcycles, and they found my uncle in a haystack. Clearly someone had betrayed him, who had seen that he was in that haystack. And he was killed on the spot, murdered. So I do his work, and I hope he gets the credit for it, because he is the inspiration. And this way of life continued until we came upon an old friend of my mother's and uncle's family, a Polish Catholic, Stanisław Grocholski, who is today, I'm happy to say, honored by HaShoah for the work he did to save our family. It soon became dust. It didn't last for 2 years. In the middle, he had buckets for us to use as toilet. And every night, he would put his family to bed, and he would come up and clean the toilets. And when his chores were done, he would bring us a pot of boiled beans and potatoes, which we shared by counting the beans and counting the pieces of potato. And he saved us, and then he found 4 brothers of my mother in the forest. And when he told my mother, she said, "You can't leave them there. You can't leave them there. They'll freeze to death. You must bring them here." And he protested on the grounds that I can't bring them here. We're observing a curfew. I will be seen and killed with your brothers. Is that what you want? And my mother assured him that he would be safe because he would be doing God's work. He would be saving lives. And apparently he believed her because he brought them to us. I don't know how. I was too young to worry about a question like that. But he did bring them, and he tried to save 15 of us. He succeeded in saving 12. We lost 3. The first one was my baby sister. I don't know how old she was, but she was the youngest in the group, and it was clear that she was dying. So my parents wrapped her up at night and carried her to our native town. We were now a distance from that town, and they put her on the doorstep of the church. The priest figured out very quickly what happened. He got a young, childless couple to take care of my baby sister, but it was too late. She's resting on the Catholic cemetery of Ujejovice in Poland. After her, my youngest cousin, also too young to survive what we were living through, he died, and he's resting next to the little house where we were hidden. And after him, his mother died. Shock, because she was a stately lady. She was young, she was strong, she was capable. She should have lived, but she died too, and she's buried next to her son. The rest of us made it because there was one righteous man. Had there been more righteous people, unafraid of Hitler, as they say they were, though I never believed it. No one ever believes that it was fear. It was a deep-felt hatred of Jews and a desire to get rid of us. Hitler promised to make Europe Judenrein, and he succeeded. The funny thing is that Jews are still hated, even though they're hardly there. There are so few of them there. But the hatred continues. It appears that once you learn to hate, you can't unlearn it. Not easily, anyway. So I guess our task is to fight hate in some way, in many ways, but not by hate. That, I think, is truly self-defeating. I try by teaching. Others may have better ideas. But hatred must be fought. We may never win, but we will continue the battle. And that's what counts, I think.
With all that you experienced, before, during, and after the Holocaust, what are your views on European Jewry? Are you optimistic about their situation?
Absolutely. I'm an optimist. Were I not an optimist, I don't think I could have made it, but try to think of the good we can create. And it takes optimism to do that, because the evil around us is so apparent, so ever-present. But the good we can create takes optimism, and I am committed to being an optimist. Yes, we can. Yes, we can do wonderful things. And you have people doing it right here. So I have no doubt that things will one day be better. They will. But it takes work. It takes effort. We can't sort of sit on our hands and think that somebody else will do the job. We have to commit to the task in some way, in whatever way we can, to build a better world, a better future. Yes.
We are blessed to live in a country that provides resources and freedom to defend ourselves and live safely.
Yes.
What can we do for our brothers and sisters in Europe?
Well, several suggestions were made by the professor before me, and I respect all the ideas. And I think that when you put your mind to something, the vision broadens, the horizons are indicate what you should do. If you don't start, you accomplish nothing. But if you start and you work at it, and we will have failures, but we'll work at it and improve and erase our failures and make better ones. Will we ever get rid of hatred? I doubt it. But can we control it? Yes, we can, and we will, and we should work at it. Yes.
Thank you for sharing your story with us. We'll take it to heart, we will remember it, and we will continue to act on it in the future.
the sheer number of deaths were greater than any catastrophe that has ever happened to our people. Numbers greater than the death and suffering in Egypt, which we remember on Pesach. Numbers greater than the suffering and death associated with the destruction of the temples, which we remember on HaShoah. The Holocaust occurred within living memory, as you have just heard, but you will be among the last to hear from a victim and personal witness to these crimes. Imagine what it would be like to have one of the B'nai Israel, who was a slave in Egypt, seated at your Seder table. You have just had this privilege with regard to the Holocaust. As we recently were reminded at the Seder, B'chol dor v'dor chayav adam l'rot et atzmo ki hu yatsa miMitzrayim. In every generation, man must view himself as if he left Egypt. We are all commanded to feel as if we personally left Egypt, for if we had not been taken out, we would still be slaves there. So too, in our generation, we must learn to internalize that the Holocaust is our legacy. We are the heirs to the Holocaust. For if the Nazis had not been stopped, there would not be a single Jew left in the world today. Our generation has the responsibility of taking action and of passing on the witness of what happened to our people to all future generations. President John F. Kennedy once said, "Each time a man stands up for an ideal, or acts to improve the lot of others, or strikes out against injustice, he sends forth a tiny ripple of hope, and those ripples build a current which he can sweep down the mightiest of walls of oppression and resistance." We, at the Student Holocaust Education Movement of Yeshiva University, have set up the Adopt a Survivor program this year to encourage you to take action and to make a connection with the survivor while we can. When we first decided to create the program, we didn't think that we would get many responses.
say sojourn